Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies. Thunder Bay Mayor Bill Morrow is hoping to have city staff put together a vaccination policy for all staff who deal with face-to-face with the general public. Morrow's motion will come before City Council on Monday night. It comes following the announcement this week by Ontario's Chief Medical Officer that mandates certain public sector workplaces to require vaccinations or face regular COVID testing and other measures. The policy would also apply to local paramedics and staff in many other city departments, and Morrow wants it put in black and white for all employees and others that would be affected.
I don't know how many people it will cover potentially, but it will be a lot. There is a lot of sort of face-to-face piece. You can think of, the sewer and water folks that are out there, maybe having to go into somebody's home for a couple of different reasons. You can think of transit operators. Of course, we operate long-term care homes as well. So there's a number of things that we're involved in that will continue to bring people into close contact. And so the point is to simply bring us a policy. Council ultimately will have to approve it.
Morrow adds that he intends to have council be given the information about the path forward for health and safety in all areas where customer service is provided by the city. Medical Officer of Health Dr. Janet DeMille is voicing caution to private employers as more workplaces look to implement vaccine policies. She has yet to outline a recommendation to the business community, but notes that the cost of regular tests can add up and restricting access can be a slippery slope. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Before the district's medical officer of health offers recommendations to local businesses on a vaccine policy, she wants to see how more things play out. Dr. Janet DeMille is carefully watching the growth of the Delta variant in other health units and points to the high vaccination rate locally as a key indicator to keep in mind when crafting something as important as a workplace vaccine policy.
One needs to be very thoughtful about any type of policy that might restrict people. And there's been many examples of that over the course of this pandemic. And it has to be balanced. So if the risk is there, it could warrant stronger policies. But if the risk isn't there, or it's maybe you don't quite understand the risk, I think we just have to take this, thoughtfully and cautiously.
Her advice doesn't stop there, however. With so many businesses and institutions looking to stockpile tests for those who may not get vaccinated, DeMille doesn't predict a shortage.
There's a lot of tests that are available. I think what will be likely important for colleges and universities and other places is to make sure that they can, the feasibility of implementing it and what does that look like for them is considered.
Stronger vaccine policies have yet to be imposed anywhere locally, but DeMille says if the Delta variant takes hold in the district, they may be considered.
Anybody who isn't vaccinated is not allowed to be in that premise. And, but that's a very strong measure. It may come a time where that's a very appropriate measure, but right now that's not currently where we're focusing.
Meanwhile, the health unit identified one new variant of concern from a previous case on Friday, and there's also one new case and another one resolved, leaving 5 active cases in the Thunder Bay district. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Those calls for stricter workplace vaccination rules come after the City of Toronto announced it will require all of its workers to be fully vaccinated. They also come as the province of Ontario is reporting 650 new COVID-19 cases today. John Musselman has the details.
As the number of COVID cases continues to rise, so too does the number of businesses and governments calling for mandatory vaccines for all employees. The Hospital for Sick Children will make it mandatory for all employees, staff, volunteers, and contractors who do not have a documented or human rights exemption. The hospital says anyone who isn't vaccinated will be required to participate in an education course about vaccination. The Sick Kids policy is similar to other children's hospitals in Ontario.
In order to fully protect the safety of our patients and families and our staff, we had to take it one step further and mandate vaccinations for all staff members on the premises of SickKids.
Today, Toronto's Chief Medical Officer of Health issued a directive that all employers in the city implement their own vaccine policies. One of the first of the big five banks has done just that. RBC sent a letter to staff on Thursday saying all workers will have to be vaccinated to work on the property. Employees will be required to have 2 doses by October the 31st. TD has issued a similar policy. Mandatory vaccination policies have already been announced for the Ontario Public Service and City of Toronto workers, as well as the TTC.
It's something that we want to be taken seriously because we take this very seriously as a part of the overall effort we're making to keep people safe and healthy in the city and to make sure the city can kind of reopen and get back to a life that I think is something we all want to do.
If you've got everybody under your roof that's vaccinated, the likelihood of having a bigger outbreak, the likelihood of bringing the infection in and having a bigger outbreak is much, much smaller.
And today, Metrolink says it will bring in a mandatory COVID-19 vaccine policy for all of its employees. An internal survey found that 81% of Metrolink's employees are fully vaccinated already. It believes a mandatory policy will help boost those numbers. And the Toronto Zoo is now following suit. It announced today that all zoo staff and volunteers will be required to disclose and provide proof of their vaccination status by September the 13th. John Musselman, CTV News, Toronto.
The learning model for Thunder Bay High School students is changing once again to a format that will allow the less popular quadmester system be switched to the normal semester system if the COVID situation improves. Last year, high schoolers in the Catholic and Lakehead boards took one in-person class for 2.5 hours each morning and then were bused home for a second virtual class in the afternoon. Lakehead Board Director Ian McRae says that system was difficult for many teachers and students alike. This year, the plan was for both classes to be in person until the next quadmester began in November. But now the two boards are adopting what McRae calls an adaptive quadmester. Students will take 4 courses throughout the fall, with the 2 the first week, the other 2 the following week, and then alternating after that.
The advantage of the adaptive quadmester system is that should numbers allow, and on a regional basis, we hope it will allow us to move back to a full-scale semestering system, and it makes it very easy to make that switch if you're in an adaptive quadmester model as opposed to a straight quadmester model.
Students will also still have the option of taking all of their courses virtually. Firefighting crews continue to battle numerous blazes in northwestern Ontario, but now the tally has fallen to double digits. As of noon today, there were 99 active fires in the region, and a new fire 44 kilometers north of Thunder Bay is now declared out. The fire hazard remains high to extreme in southern portions of the region, including Fort Francis, Kenora, Dryden, and Thunder Bay districts. As for northern regions such as Red Lake and Wabaseemoong, where some of the most intense infernos continue to burn, relief appears to be on the horizon. Significant rain is due to arrive this week, something the area hasn't seen in some time, says Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand.
And a lot of fire potential out there on the landscape as this extended period of fire escalation continues. And a good soaking of rain is really something we haven't seen in any widespread way. And the potential for some real help from the weather exists over in the region over the next few days.
To date, the forest fire tally for this year in northwestern Ontario stands at 953, with over 712,000 total hectares burned. That's nearly 4.5 times the 10-year average. A quick arrest for city police following an early morning armed robbery. Officers were dispatched to a Harbor Expressway hotel just after 1 o'clock this morning after a woman armed with a knife approached the clerk at the front desk and demanded cash. It was learned the same woman had robbed 2 people in a nearby parking lot just prior to entering the hotel. Police located a suspect a short time later at a Memorial Avenue fast food restaurant. The 22-year-old Thunder Bay woman is charged with 3 counts of robbery with a weapon. The Newmont Musselwhite Mine has partnered with the Regional Food Bank to ensure healthy food can be distributed to impoverished communities across the region. The RFDA received a big donation from mine officials today to help make that happen. Alex Flood reports.
The pandemic has had a devastating impact on families living below the poverty line, especially when it comes to meal preparation. Newmont Musselwhite recognized this shortfall in the Northwest and donated $35,000 to the regional food bank to help make food distribution easier. The money will go towards the facility's new processing room, which will allow RFDA staff to efficiently and safely process fresh foods for shipping and storage. Included in this room is their brand new processing machine called Dorphy, which can quickly slice and dice a variety of meats, poultry, and vegetables. Executive Director Volker Krom says thanks to Musselwhite's donation, they'll be able to distribute food faster.
It's all the same thing where you could get it with your home processors, but this is on a bigger scale. So we'll have volunteers and staff trained. So this is taking us a whole new direction with being able to satisfy some of the communities. So yes, there is bulk food available in Canada, but we have to make it, process it, so that we can share it.
Handling fresh produce when delivered by the truckload is one of the biggest challenges the RFDA faces, especially when it comes to shipping to remote communities. Kayla Soares, representing Musselwhite Mine, says they're thrilled to help make that process easier.
An initiative like this aligns with all of Newmont's core values, as well as all of the goals of the Musselwhite Community Investment Committee too. So we're really pleased to be partnering with the RFDA to provide healthy food and food security to Northwestern Ontario communities that need it most.
While the RFDA has made a strong commitment towards feeding those in need across the region, Newmont Musselwhite's donation will help make it easier to ensure that those meals are healthy. And Krom says that's a huge priority for the regional food bank.
I would rather deal with craft dinner and Spam, but the reality is we have a commitment to provide healthier food. And with the healthy food will come education. So there are some things that communities and individuals and groups just aren't used to anymore.
Alex Flood, TBT News.
A helicopter filled with golf balls took center stage at the second annual Raising the Bar golf tournament at Whitewater Golf Club today. The fundraiser is in honor of the late Dustin Barr, who battled cancer for 7 years before passing away at the age of 24. The tournament kicked off with the popular Golf Balls from Heaven cash prize event. 5,000 golf balls were loaded onto a helicopter and dropped from the sky onto the 18th fairway. The person with the ball closest to the pin won $5,000, and some of this year's proceeds were donated to the Special Olympics Foundation. The head of the charity, Dustin Wilson, believes this year's event will exceed the $45,000 that was raised last year, and he's honored to be carrying on the vision of the inspirational golfer.
Whether it was through golf or other organizations. So when we add an event like this with the helicopter ball drop, the tournament, all the proceeds are going to go back to the charities and the organizations that he wished before he passed. And it's all in his name and his honor. So we're keeping Dustin's dreams alive.
Wilson wished to thank the 140 golfers in attendance, the 50 volunteers, and all of the sponsors for their continued support. The popular craft beer festival known as Brewha is coming back to Thunder Bay, but it's now being held in late September and at a new location. Up until the pandemic canceled last year's event, Brewha had always been held in August at Marina Park. This year it will be taking place on Cumberland Street between Van Norman and Red River, with the street closed off to all traffic. The festival will host 250 people for each of the 3 sessions happening September 24th and 25th. The tickets come with a commemorative glass and 4 tokens for all the craft beer samples on site. The event will also see live music and food vendors. As of right now, the event is completely sold out for all 3 sessions. Brewha organizer Elena Linklater explains why they decided to change to a new venue.
And the opportunity came up to partner with the Waterfront BIA, and we thought it was a great opportunity to really amplify all the bars and restaurants in the area that have been hit so hard over the pandemic, as well as change up the vibe this year. We're bringing it to the street.
As for the 2022 Brewha, Linklater says they plan to move it back to Marina Park. A portion of this year's ticket sales will be supporting the Canadian Mental Health Association. One of the most popular city-run events, the Movie Nights in the Park, had its first showing last night, and it drew a great turnout at the Kinsmen Youth Center.
To be put in the closet.
How much longer? Keep it to a dull roar, Rex. Deep breath, Jesse.
The outdoor movie nights were usually held at the marina, but because of COVID, the city took a slightly different approach this year. The first event featuring Toy Story 4 was held last night on the park on North James Street, with room for 100 people to come and bring their own blankets, chairs, and even pets. Cultural Development and Events Supervisor Louisa Costanzo explains why they decided not to have the movie nights at the waterfront like in the past.
The event to the more community parks seemed like a really great idea. They did it in 2019 with Dees Park, and it was quite successful. So we're kind of running with that momentum, trying something new. And I mean, with COVID and the restrictions on capacity, it seemed like a great time to try it out.
The city has 2 other movie nights planned, with The Lion King being shown outside the West Center Community Center on August 26th, and then Trolls at Balsam Park on September 2nd.